just like we're reading right here. The Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, who the Edomites had in slavery, okay, which are you so-called white people if you don't know, all right? We're going to put you in slavery, okay, according to the Bible. All right, let me read that again. It says Isaiah 14 and 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. That's a polite way of saying slaves. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And that's what's going to happen, man. He's gonna take us out of this condition that we're in the ghettos and the projects, right, in this low estate, all right, and all these different islands that we're in is third world countries, okay? Mainly because a lot of times we're in debt to like Britain or England or France or whatever the case may be, okay? So regardless, he's gonna take us out of that captive state, because if you owe somebody money, you're really in slavery to that person, one way or another, okay? It says the scripture says the debtor is slave to the lender, because you're really working for that person, no matter how you slice it, because you have to pay back that person. Okay, right? So you're in slavery to that person. So this captivity never ended for you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So the way it's going to end, like I'm reading, is through the Lord coming back and putting our enemies in captivity. Now let me get Joel, the 3rd chapter, because it tells you specifically, right, the nations who were responsible for the slavery of the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans in the Bible. All right, this is Joel 3, verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Okay? Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Now, Tyre and Zidon would be consistent of those who you would call native Africans, okay? Because there's a difference between the so-called Negro and the native Africans of the East and Central, okay? There's a difference. That's why they always called the West of Africa Negro land. They never called it Africa. At one point, they called that Negro land, okay? So those Africans, they gathered up the Israelites, okay? And they sold us unto the white man. That's what it's going to explain. But who made the boats? It says Palestine. The Arabs made the boats. Okay, they made the boats for the slave trade. Okay, so these are the nations who are mainly responsible for the slavery of you so-called Negroes. Okay, and it's going to go deeper. Will ye render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children of Judah, the children also of Judah, and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. Okay? Now, the Bible is parabolic talk, right? Sometimes it speaks about a nation with one of their specific cities, right? Right? Or sometimes it speaks about the nation as a whole. It might say Ishmael, or it might say the city of Tarshish or whatever. Right now it's speaking about, hey man, you gotta know which God you're talking about now. You know? Right? Because not every God, we're not dealing with every God. We're dealing with the God of the Bible. Okay? Right? So, like I said, right? It says the Grecians here, but that encompasses all the so-called white people. Okay? Doesn't just speak about the Grecians. The reason why it says the Grecians is because that was the first civilization of the so-called white man. Alright? That's why it says the Grecians. Alright? The children also of Judah, alright, which means the so-called Negroes, alright, and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, alright, that ye might remove them far from their border. And they removed us far from our border, which is the land of Israel. Okay? Because we fled into the land of Africa, right? Fleeing Roman persecution in 70 AD. Okay? And we fled into the west coast, predominantly in the west coast of Africa. Okay? And from there, the Hamites worked together with the Ishmaelites to sell us to who? The so-called white man, the Edomites. All right? Our top enemy on the planet. All right? And what we have here is the book From Babylon to Timbuktu, which goes into that. And this is a historian who breaks it down, all right? He clearly says the history of the so-called Negro and how they got into the land of Africa, all right? This is Babylon to Timbuktu, page 84, all right? In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem in 70 AD. General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. All right. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing Roman persecution. All right? So the Israel, why did they flee into Africa? Common sense, man. If you're running from a nation, you're a whole nation, millions of people running from a nation, you're not going to flee amongst people who don't look like you. You're going to flee amongst a nation that looks like you, man. It's only common sense, man. Right? If these were so-called white people, they're going to flee into Africa to hide when they could go into Europe, right? They could go down into the islands, but they fled into Africa, man. The reason they fled into Africa is because those so-called Africans somewhat have their complexion, okay? They kind of look like them, all right? That's why they fled into Africa, man, all right? 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. That's talking about this recent slave market, man. Talking about the transatlantic slave trade, all right? So this book is clearly telling you that you so-called Negroes are Israelites, man. It's showing you that you descend from the Israelites, the biblical Israelites, okay? So what do you think is going to happen for what you did to God's chosen people, man? Right? You Edomites feel like you got away scot-free. That's not the case, man. The Most High is about to bring a destruction upon you Edomites, man. Okay? And any one of our people who don't adhere to what we're speaking, man. Okay? Any one of our people who don't want to get with the truth, the Most High is going to bring that judgment upon you too. You're going to go down right with the heathen, man. In other words. Okay? Let me get Revelations 13 and 9. All right? This is Revelations 13, verse 9. Hold up. Revelations 13, verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity must go into captivity. All right? Let me read that again. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. All right? Which means if someone leads somebody into slavery, they're going to go into slavery. Okay? And that's exactly what's going to happen to these Edomites, man. All right, they think they got away with that. The Most High already wrote that down. He already has the judgment set for these devils, man. All right, these devils ain't going nowhere, man. Okay? And it says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. All right, and how did he get this land from the Native Americans? He killed with the sword, man. All right, he murdered, man. All right, he set up treaties and he broke every treaty and stabbed them in the back. Okay? That's how this man accomplished to get this land. By being a snake. Alright? And by murdering and raping and robbing. Alright? He would wait till the men go out to hunt and go and kill the women and children, man. In the village. That's how these so-called white people get down, man. Alright? They put themselves in the TV like they're these benevolent people, but that's how they got this land, man. Alright? They got it by trickery and robbery, man. And murder. Okay? And the scripture says he that killed with the sword must be killed with the sword. Alright? It doesn't say he might be killed with a sword or we're gonna negotiate with him. Nah, man, it says he must be killed with a sword. Right? And that goes back to Numbers 35 and 33. Alright? That's a law in the Bible. All right? Let me get that. Numbers 35, verse 33. All right? This is Numbers 35. Verse 33. All right? And it reads, So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the blood cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. All right? So we know that in order to clean the land of the blood that was shed, right, justice has to be repaid, man. Which means those people, their blood has to be shed. Okay? You might say, oh, those people died. Listen, the Most High sees everything, man. He controls everything. All right? Those people would never get away without what he's reading here coming to pass, without this judgment coming to pass. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they came back, man. There's something called reincarnation in the Bible, man. All right? I have plenty of scriptures that I can prove that. These people that you see walking around, they all had slaves, man. They were all down with the murder of you so-called Native Americans, you Latinos, all right? You so-called Negroes, man. They were there before, man. Everything is reincarnated. You think you just die and it just goes to black? Of course not, man. The Most High has it set up in a cycle, man. Life is a cycle, all right? So these same Edomites that you see walking around, the so-called white people, they're going to get their judgment, man. The Most High is waiting to give them their judgment, all right? Matter of fact, let me get Isaiah the 14th chapter, 14 and 21, all right? This is Isaiah 14, verse 21.